to the power of one. Today, I am going to be speaking with two dynamic individuals, and I am so excited because there have been many times where I have been called to a meeting and I say to them, you have the wrong people around the table. These two dynamic individuals are actually working with those who have been on the other side of the gun when shootings take place, and they offer so many services. Welcome to the show, Faith and Paul.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for having us.
Faith, I'm going to start with you. You're with Pushin' Project Philly, PPP. Tell us a little bit about what that is.
Okay, so yes, Pushing Progress Philly, P3 as we're known as, is based on the Chicago Ready model of anti-gun violence. So right now we work within the 19144 area with men ages 18 to 35 at the highest risk of gun violence. We connect these high risk young men with behavioral health interventions such as cognitive behavioral therapy, transitional jobs, and job training.
So, Faith, are these individuals returning citizens? And are they individuals who are shooters or that are in gangs?
They could be any of the three that you just mentioned. So they are the young men that are at the highest risk. They can either be perpetrator or they can be victim. So we offer our services to either or to try to get them in a safe space. You know, we offer them the cognitive behavioral therapy that is necessary for them to integrate themselves back into the community to which they live in. You know, we want the community to be safe. We want the participants to be safe. So we open our doors to both.
You mentioned 19144. Do they have to be a resident of 19144, or could they have encountered something of some nature in the zip code 19144?
So they can either live in 19144, they can frequent 19144, or whatever they did could have happened in 19144. But that's just our starting point. Our program just began in the spring of 2023. We've had a phenomenal response to our program. And so eventually we will be venturing out, but right now we're servicing that Germantown area.
Now, all services are free, correct?
Correct. Our services are free. As a matter of fact, our participants are given a stipend while they're in our program. So our program has 4 phases to it. It has an outreach phase, which is the beginning phase, where we have what is called credible messengers that they go out into the public and find these participants. So they are people who come from the same walk of life as the people that we're serving, right? So that's in our phase 1. Our phase 2 is where they get the majority of their behavioral therapy. They are also given professional development in that phase. When they move on to our phase 3, they are given transitional jobs, which hopefully leads into permanent full-time employment. And then phase 4 is where they start to phase out of our program, but we do still keep a hold of them to offer them any type of other assistance they may need.
Faith, how do you get your participants?
So that's where phase 1 comes into. We use credible messengers. They go out into the streets. They go to where they know these people are, where they frequent, and they meet them where they at, you know, and they have conversations with them, find out if they're interested in the program. They give them lots of information. And once they decide that, hey, this might be something that I'm interested in, we do an intake with them and we bring them in. So we don't bring them right into the program to start. They then do warm-up sessions. They do an orientation with our outreach workers, and then they do warm-up sessions. They do 3 warm-up sessions to, to understand the program, to see what we're offering and see how they fit in and if it's something that they definitely want to do, and then they are moved on into the program.
Can someone just walk in or call and say, listen, I have a friend who's a part of the program. Can I now be a part of the program?
So what they can do, yes, so you wouldn't walk in, but we have a brochure, we have a QR code, we have a phone number. They can reach out. When they reach out, the our outreach workers will get back with them um, right away. So there's no waiting list right now. So our outreach workers reach out to them right away to get them in, to make sure that they qualify for the program, and just to give them an overall sense of, is this the right program for them?
Okay. And Faith, please tell the viewers your position and what you do.
So I am the assistant director and I run the day-to-day operations of our program. I do all the background work, the participants normally meet me on the first day and they see me at different times, but for the most part, I do the background work that they don't see, that most people don't see.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. Paul, let's speak to you for a
Yeah.
little bit. Let's first you introduce yourself and then tell us a little bit of your background. And then you are with Impact, correct?
Yes, I am with Impact. I've actually been incarcerated for 36 years. Coming home, I actually was introduced to Impact Services by a friend of mine for facilitation purposes. I interviewed, I was hired, and I was hired to work the workforce for Pushing Progress Philly. What we do is we go in every day with these young men that Faith just spoke about, and we actually run and operate those phases 2 through 4. Phase two is a sort of an introduction phase. It introduces the participants to the facilitators, introduce them to what the workforce development procedures are, the community violence intervention, that sort of thing. Again, when they get to phase 3, they actually go into the transitional and then phase 4 permanent work. So we actually are the force that actually kind of goes in, does the mentoring, have those sessions regarding that therapeutic transformation that they actually are interested in. Again, a lot of times when guys come in the beginning, they're asked, what their intentions are and how do they think the program fits for them. So we're actually the workforce for the program.
And so with you being incarcerated, I think that's priceless to be
Mhm.
able to help those who may at one time been on the other side
Yes.
of the law. How does that work for you? And how long have you been a returning citizen?
I've been returning citizen for 2 years now, January 24th. It's been a pleasure to actually be able to actually be in the lives of these young men. It gives me opportunity to actually continuously challenge myself. So it actually works for me as well as it does for them. I think it's imperative that we actually have the credible messengers, be a part of or come from that side of the street, so forth, so that it gives them an opportunity to see that that transformation is possible. It's there, it's needed, and that it's a necessity.
I agree. Do you find that more so than not, the participants are receptive to you because you've been where they have possibly may go or have been living for a little while?
They're receptive to A lot of them are receptive to change. Me personally, yes, I do get a lot of accolades from the participants because I use a firm hand. I don't enable. I'm not their friend. I don't look at it in that fashion. I think in coming into the program, they need to be assured that the person that's saying that they're going to assist and they're going to help are not going to just enable and just, I guess, kind of be their friend. They need somebody to actually give them the instructions that they need so that, you know, what they're there for, they get.
That's awesome. How long is the program? Is it short term, long term? How long is the actual program? Either one of you can speak to that.
So the program is based on a 2 hour, 200-hour program. So when they're in, when they make it, like I said, they start the program with outreach. And our outreach, like I call them, they are credible messengers. They are people who come from where they come from, who have been through what they've been through. So they're able to speak to them on a level that maybe someone who's never had any street experience could speak to them, right? So they come in then when they start phase two, and our phase two of the program, that is from hour 1 to hour 50. So in hour 1 through 50, they are given intense behavioral therapy. This is where they get the most out of the program. They get that cognitive behavioral therapy for an hour and a half. Uh, then they have professional development, and then they go back into that therapy again, right? So in these group therapies, they're allowed to speak from the heart. We have a curriculum base, it's curriculum based, but they are able to speak on the things that are important to them while we also try to change their behaviors, the way they're thinking, different behaviors. But they get to do it in a way that they're comfortable with, right? So we allow them to speak freely. So when they move on to hour 51 is where they start the transitional jobs. At that point, they still are getting that behavioral therapy, that cognitive behavioral therapy, but they're also working. They're working a 20-hour a week job along to go along with what they are already getting in the therapy. And is, that's part of the transitioning them, because some of these young men have never held a job, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for some of them, this is their first introduction into real work,
Right.
not street work, but real work. So, and they do that from hour 51 to hour 150. So during that time, there's a lot that goes into that time. When they reach phase 4, that's their phase out phase. And during that time, they are no longer working a transitional job, but at this point, they are being employed full time or going to school full time, and then they can be in the program up to 18 months. Although if they come every day and they move right along, it normally only takes them about 9 months. But
Mm.
based on the demographic of people we have, right, we have to allow that time for them to things to happen. So it's not just about like me running things or even Paul and the facilitators. We also offer them so much more. So we have a behavioral health person that sits in those rooms and helps them, with adjustments, right? We also have a housing specialist. A lot of our guys come into us without stable housing. So we have a housing specialist that works with not only getting them housing through PHA if eligible, but also like some of them are couch surfing. So we do more than just offer them free housing. We help them find housing, whether it be a room or an apartment, we give them that help. We have a supportive services guy. He goes out into their homes and make sure that they're stable. We offer them support. Maybe their lights are getting ready to get cut off, so we offer them supportive services. Maybe they need a coat, maybe they're missing things for their children, right? So we have a whole support staff that also works with us to make sure that they get everything they need. So it's not just about one thing. We try to cover all things that encompass someone that comes from where they come from.
That's awesome. That is awesome. And it's good to know that under certain circumstances, it's 9 months. But we're going
Right.
to add on another 9 months for those what ifs or
Yes.
what about. And that's excellent because everything is not just that cookie cutter. Everybody's not the same. And I
Correct.
just may need a little bit more loving and a little bit more time. So that's awesome that you guys
Right.
offer that. Paul, let me go back to you. Do you find that people in the program want to hear your story, or do you share your story?
I share my story, depending on what module we're on or where we are or what transpires during the course of a session. So for instance, let's just say we're speaking about hope because hope is one of the beginning modules of phase 2. So in that session, a lot of times people always or participants often ask about who you are and where you've been when you have that conversation about hope. So it normally comes up in that module during our CADs. So yeah, I do have that conversation about where I've been and try to allow them to kind of get some understanding about, where you can be in life and what could transpire and how things could happen if in fact you don't decide to just kind of, settle in your life and kind of figure out where you need to be and where you're going. So yeah, I do have that conversation.
We try to make them understand that everybody on our team, right? We Everybody comes from somewhere, right?
Mhm,
And so we try to teach them because we try to teach them that we're not judging them. We're not judging
mhm,
them from
mhm.
where they come from or what they've been through. But having the people that we have on our staff, we try to encourage them that they should look at us the same way, right? So I always use myself as an example. When the participants see me, they only know me one way, right? So
Mhm.
they will say things to me like, Miss Faith, you ain't never been through nothing, because they only know me this way, right? They don't know where I grew up at, right? So they don't always know your background, So sometimes I even say to them, hey, I'm not from the county. I didn't grow up privileged. I'm from Baltimore. I'm from the city. I I got my GED. Like I didn't finish high school. I dropped out of high school. But I came back. I went back to school. I now have a master's degree. So, I try to teach them that you can go from wherever you were and be somebody different. So that's one of the things we try to show them, that we don't judge them and we don't want them to look at us like that. We want them to understand we're truly here because we're passionate about it and we want to see them succeed, but we take the experience from ourselves, right? That you just don't know where somebody comes from. Because looking at Paul, you don't know that Paul did
Right,
36 years, right? So
right.
when they see Paul, they just think, oh, sometimes they may think, he's just coming in here trying to tell us what to do. No, he came from where you are. He turned his life around and look at where he is now. It's always good for the participants because it excites them. So then they're like, hey, if he can do it and he came out
Mhm.
and look where he is, it gives them that extra push to go hard, to not go back to where they came from.
Hard question. How does the program help that youth that thinks that the gang life is what they are supposed to be in? And how do we help the youth who they see their father, their uncle, their cousins who are selling drugs or who resort to violence? How does the program help them when most of the time that they're going to spend is with that family member, you know what I mean, that's about violence?
Well, actually, to be honest, once they come into the program, they form new friendships, new relationships, new families, right? We have even had it to where we actually had a father and son both in the
Oh,
program.
wow.
Okay. So in most cases, to be honest with you, their families push for them to do the right thing. It's You would be surprised at how many of them, their uncles and fathers and friends are still maybe in the street, but they will push them to not be, so it's amazing that, you would think that they would be saying, no, come on, stay in the street. But we find that it's quite the opposite. And I think, like I mentioned before, for some of them, this is the first time they've ever worked, right? So when they're in the program and they get that first paycheck, regardless of the amount, it doesn't even matter the amount. The fact that they earned it on their own,
Mhm.
that somebody, they got a paycheck, you would be surprised at how exciting and fulfilling that is to them, right?
Yeah.
Because
Mhm.
they didn't have to stand on the street to get it. They didn't have to do something illegal to get it. That is a big thing for a lot of them that most people don't see, because you only look at it as fast money. But when they find out that they can actually earn money, and that we have the support of the city behind us, and they're meeting people and they're being honored and they're being talked to by people they never thought they would meet, it's not a big leap. Now, of course, we can't help everybody, because you're
Right.
always going to have those ones. But to be honest with you, for the most part, we don't have that too often.
That's good. That's good. Paul, we are going to end with you, and you spoke about hope. What message do you have for that young African American male or that middle-aged African American male? Because here in the city of Philadelphia, I see all too often where our young African American males are shooting other young African American males and killing them. And that breaks my heart. What message of hope do you have?
Forgive yourself for the things you did not know until you learned them. Um, I always talk about the rites of passage. It's changing because of the demographic is younger. I think a lot of people that are family members of some of these young participants and guys that are involved in criminal activity in the street are changing that rites of passage, so to speak, because they see that now it's not their 20 something year old cousin, but now it's their 11 and 12-year-old cousin. So I think it's changing for them. And I'm talking about, when I say for them, I'm talking about older gentlemen that are active in the streets, that still participate in that lifestyle and are a part of the culture. I think that I don't know, children just they're reaching different. They're reaching inward now. That their excellence is becoming something else opposed to just being in the street. And it's because of programs like this one. I don't think there's any program in the city like this, but programs do and are some of the I guess the beginning for some of these young guys. And again, we have to actually forgive ourselves for the things that we did not know until we learned. And we have to really kind of instill this in some of these young men so that they understand that, okay, well, I'm ignorant to this fact, or I'm you're just not willing to, to adhere to it or listen to it. But at some point, we have to actually be able to say to them and be a part of their lives and be able to just put a circle around them and just have them in that space and just continue to communicate with them about what their needs are, because a lot of them just don't know what their needs are.
That's true. So, Faith, I'm going to end again. I know I said I was going to end with Paul, but I'm going to end again. We speak about the young African American males. Unfortunately, and I've seen this probably maybe about 6 or 7 years ago, where there were more females being shot. At one time, females
Mhm.
and children were off limits. Okay, that has since changed. Are there a lot of female participants,
So
Faith?
in our program, there are no female participants. Our program is geared towards men. I do know that they do have some other programs are in the city that are geared towards women, but our program specifically is for men 18 to 35.
Sounds good. Faith, I thank you so much for all of the hard work that you are doing. Please keep it up. And remember your self-care because I do not need you to get burned out. We got a lot more work to do. And Paul, thank you so much for what you do. Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
coming out and making that change and wanting to help your young African American brothers. It means
Absolutely.
a lot. And I mean, I say this all the time, the power of one starts with you. And Paul, you are doing it. And I thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
both of you for joining me
You
today.
are welcome.
You're
Thanks for
welcome.
having us.
Thank you so much for joining me today. You have just seen two examples, the power of one. They're doing something about it, not just the talk. And everybody that knows me knows that I'm not a talker, I am a doer. So my question to you is what are you doing to make your city a better place? What are you doing to mentor that person, that young person in your church, on your street, in your neighborhood? Together, we have to love on one another. Peace and love.